Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Comfy Org stream. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully, very, very, very well. We are joined today by Zeev Farbman from LTX and Yoland Yan from Comfy Org. Hello, everybody. Please say hello, introduce yourselves.
Hello.
You want to go first?
No,
Yes,
yes.
please.
Guys, before I introduce myself, I have a great idea. I think AI founders should unionize and demand that every morning they get this double espresso, because otherwise it's really hard to start the day. But anyhow,
I
guys,
feel that. I'm actually all about that. Yeah.
I've never heard unionizing all founders. Great. Actually, I think if we all unionize against the VCs, it will be a great thing.
No, we can demand things like, participate in the upside of the fund, right? Because I kind of feel that the relationship is not terribly symmetric at the moment. Yeah. But anyhow, before I continue with my amazing ideas about the world of venture capital, guys, my name is Zeev Farbman. I'm a co-founder CEO of LTX. We're very excited to build open world models, and we're gonna hopefully keep doing that for a while.
Nice. Yannick?
Right on.
Hello, I'm Yannick, formerly known as comfyanonymous. Yeah. And for those who don't know, I'm the one that originally created ComfyUI.
Not that anonymous anymore.
Yeah.
Show up in these podcasts way too frequent to stay anonymous.
Yeah, I keep saying it's comfy, not so anonymous now.
Now, actually, if you go search LLM, they will literally be like, "Oh, Comfy is created by Yannick."
Yeah, of course.
Last name blurred. You're curious? Could just go ask.
Yeah, every LLM knows.
The agent knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Yoland.
My name's Yoland. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Comfy. I am here, very honored to chat with Zeev. It's really funny that from my view, looking this way, it's like no hair and too much hair. It's I think this is you have to be brilliant in diffusion or generative AI space. You have to go to the extreme. You can't stay in the middle.
Well, listen, you're hiding behind the head, right? So I'm not sure what's the hair situation there at the moment.
I'm just
either lose it, you have a lot, or it goes gray. Right on. Well, welcome. It's really cool to have you here. We're super stoked about LTX, as always. The whole community loves it. We use it every day. We were very curious what your experience was like at SIGGRAPH this year. We know that you came and you gave a talk, you gave a talk at Asteria with Yannick, and I think you guys did a panel, and then you guys had a dinner. And yeah, we were just curious what your overall experience at SIGGRAPH was like, and if you've seen anything there you were super excited about that blew your mind.
Listen, guys, I'm going to be a little bit of a party pooper. First time I came to SIGGRAPH was around 2005 or 6, something like that. I think that was my first SIGGRAPH paper. And I think at some point SIGGRAPH grew to 30 or 40,000 attendants. And I think this year I kind of came to the exhibition hall. It kind of felt a bit smaller. So I asked the numbers. They told me maybe 8 or 10,000 participants this year. So kind of a little bit less than in the peak. And I think in the past SIGGRAPH, the exhibition, the emerging technologies was really the place where you're coming and seeing the latest of the greatest. It's really kind of unique place where the academy, the industry, the creators are kind of geeking out for a week. Now it feels that maybe it starts to be more kind of diverse, right? A lot of people are going to CVPR for the latest AI stuff, new RIPs, etc. So I don't know. I kind of hope that next year we're gonna see a bigger SIGGRAPH. But in terms of kind of actual cool stuff, I saw some research papers, and obviously a lot of respect for people who are doing it on LTX.
How many LTX papers were there?
No, listen, I didn't count, but actually, one lady from from Tel Aviv University showed me her kind of editing stuff that she did, and I'm not even sure that she did it on LTX on what model, but just really impressed me. She was able to show how you kind of can hack CFG in order to get a control slider for video editing, right? So imagine that, I don't know, you're like generating some kind of video, but you're not happy with the aspect of it. And then you can kind of say, well, I don't know, make a person more buff. And CFG actually acts as a slider. So we typically associate CFG with like this direction that maybe, decreases initially some artifacts, but then blows things up, like too much contrast, too much saturation. So in their formulations, they're like able to tweak it really nicely. So that was kind of fun because it's small tweak and the results are amazing. And I think like for me, a general theme that I'm excited about now is okay, how we're making generative models actually behave in a way that gives creators like a ton of control, right? And we're definitely not there yet. We always have like control nets. We have Omni models, but if you're talking to people in the industry that attend SIGGRAPH, they're like, guys, we have our very expensive 3D pipelines that can give us any degree of control. And by now, it kind of feels that we need to maintain two pipelines, the 3D pipeline and the AI pipeline. And please figure it out how we can only have the AI pipeline. So I think
Right.
a lot
Pixel's a
of
pixel, right?
there.
I mean, that leads me into the next thing, which is I think LTX 2.3 might be the model with the most control potential of all the state-of-the-art video models. Was that something you had planned from the beginning, or was it something was a happy accident while training in that you realized it's really good at this sort of IC LoRa dual control situation?
Listen, guys, it actually comes from even, I would say, like a deeper architectural decision that like really mixed bag. I know like a lot of people hate us for it, but we are working in a very compressive latent space, right? Like in LTX, each token represent a 32 by 32 by 8 patch. So for a video of a given output resolution, you're having less tokens with other latent spaces, right? So let's start with the disadvantages of that. Once you have like more temporal or spatial compression, you're having like more artifacts and you need to figure out how to overcome it. The huge advantage you're getting that both the training and inference costs are like extremely lower. And that also applies to doing kind of light fine tunes and LoRa's, things like an IC LoRa, right? So a control modalities and the ease of training are coming from like this architectural decision, right? So it wasn't like exactly an afterthought. It's more like thinking in terms of constraints, right? If we're gonna train a kind of a regular model with a, more or less like vanilla VIE with a high amount of tokens, compute budget is going to be crazy. And then, okay, let the frontier labs with an infinite budget do it. We want to have something that's like really hackable, right? That people can get their hands on and have like a great experience of hacking. So like actually this week in San Francisco, we saw some people who were like really doing crazy stuff on the model, including like introducing new modalities that we never imagined, right? Like stuff for physical AI and robotics, some like weird sensors. And it all comes from the fact that it's like really easy for them to hack and train the model. If your model like for every output video is like a crazy amount of tokens, it just like increases the budgets. I don't think it's like the best choice for a community of hackers, and Comfy is a community of hackers.
Have
Yeah.
you seen that flip book? I'm sure you've seen the flip book example
Mhm.
that went super viral.
Yeah.
That's like
amazing.
amazing. Like just that was a moment where I feel like it just gives a glimpse of that future of like every pixel that can be generated will be generated.
No, I think it was like Jensen, right? That
Yeah,
said it
yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that. It's like once I saw the example, I think like a bunch of things clicked for me, right? First of all, you start to realize that
Actually, yeah. How did you feel? Like, because I mean, on my end, we're just like, wow, this is crazy. Like for the people who made that model and then just see the result of it just going so crazy. Like there are people in the rest of the world replicating that result that following week afterwards. They were just doing more of it.
But it's like, I have to say, for me, it was like even like beyond LTX or beyond pixels, like this realization that I don't know, we're not going to have libraries anymore. It's almost like imagine every static representation of the data isn't going to be a thing. And because like imagine like so far, like one of the things that I was like really excited about, like around like LLMs, is kind of learning with them. And initially I kind of was getting like this cool outputs that's explaining something to me. I was saving on this PDFs to review later, etc. Then kind of realize, wait a second, you don't need any of that. You know, like you're gonna have like this machine that's gonna generate everything on demand for you in a way that works for you, right? And it's like there's like something magical too. It isn't, to me, it reminds me of this book by Neil Stephenson called like Diamond Age,
Mm.
right? So he wrote it, I think, in the late 90s, and he described it what these days we basically can say is like this iPad with AI, but this iPad, it's built for kids, and it's like this educational AI that understands the real life of kids and creates like this immersive game, a simulator that helps them to navigate through the challenges of their life. And again, obviously, everything is generated on demand procedurally that like really tailored for the kids. And they're like, wait a second, we're like there or almost there. It's becoming more of the engineering challenge and less of this like pie in the sky like research thing. So yeah, like for me it was like, whoa, like are they aware that like it sounds like it?
Yeah, like I think it just like I think there were people, and I know the folks who built it. There were folks who were looking at that and then fundamentally question, like, any of the structured data we built in the previous era of, like, as you said, like, in this case scenario, you just, yeah, like whether any of those structured data actually, matter, and like what is the representation of knowledge and information.
Because let me ask you, okay, and it's an example, let me know if just like resonates with both of you, right? Like, are you familiar with this experience where you're trying to learn some new like math topic or like read a paper, and then you're like taking the best possible textbook, you're kind of reading, and then you're like stuck.
Mm.
And you're just like trying to understand, but and like you're still stuck, and then kind of nothing happens. I think like now with the when you're interacting with LLMs, you have like this experience when you're stuck. You're okay. You know, like he tries to explain again in a different manner,
Yep.
etc.
Yep.
And like at some point, I created to myself this prompt that teaches me stuff in a way that I understand, and constantly also like puts like this barrier of like tests, meaning that if I don't pass like a quiz after like another bite of information, it just doesn't let me move forward, right? So when I look at this stuff, to me it feels like, wait a second, we're not gonna have like math books that we had before. Just like complete, it does make sense. So like, does it like resonate with you guys? Like,
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, I think, for example, my view is like, from a pure education perspective, like I would view maybe like, I don't know if there's a YouTube channel called 3 Blue 1 Brown channel, like amazing content. That is just, to me, suggests kind of like, okay, this is the peak of what,
we could do
teaching
before.
amazing complex concept in and like, flipbook and connecting to that piece, like you can see that eventually being this case. And it's actually like amazing in that view of like you're gonna get to a world where, this high quality, and maybe the bar doesn't even stop at 3 Blue 1 Brown. Maybe it's further. Maybe like the AI, like, kind of, it's even more interactive, it's even more like, dynamic, and it's even higher quality, and attract more attention. I don't know what it
But
is.
it's like for sure, like there like for example, certain math proofs, but when you're like proofs in geometry, right? That when you're trying to do on a plane, that it's like really hard to prove something, but when you're taking it like one dimension up and visualize it a little bit, the proof kind of it becomes clear. Then that's I think what people kind of don't get, like that sometimes if you present the information in the right way, sometimes things can just click, and it click in a different way for different people. So finally, we have like this kind of machines that can start present way that like kind of click things for us. So I think that's like, to me,
my experience reading papers is I read the paper and I'm like, okay, this seems interesting. Don't really understand it. Then I look at the code, and then everything's clear.
But because that's another thing, right? Imagine like people in academia, when they publish papers, the incentive originally was to get a lot of citations, right? No one would come and say, listen, like my idea is like 4 lines of code and I can put a blog post that's going to be there, right? But now with LLMs kind of digesting everything, I think it's going to change academic research as well, right? Like I just like, there are like a lot of these like societal machines that are working in a way they just like realize, no, it is obsolete. It's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
Me personally, I have some pretty raging ADHD, and my process in using LLMs and agents has really been able to like allow me to recontextualize myself into different situations so much faster than I used to be able to by having to go back and navigate a bunch of things. I can have my agent sort of just immediately recontextualize, summarize a bunch of things, wrap it all together, and then for me that speed at information dissection or information dilution has just changed. It's literally changed my life. I feel like I can take on all kinds of new challenges because I'm not bogged down by the details anymore. And
now imagine you're gonna learn it through LTX streamed TikTok videos in 30 seconds on the
well, I mean, that's the other thing that leads to like
rocket science topic.
Why even make content now? We just like generate it later because it's going to be so much more tailored to you and your interests and things like that. We've been feeding the algorithms with all of our likes and our all the stuff that all the personality, all the information that it'll be able to just create content for us that is just so absurdly us that we won't even be able to swipe away. It won't be doom scrolling anymore. You'll just be staring at it.
You guys, do you remember like this Steve Jobs metaphor about machines, computers being like a bicycle for a human mind? So I kind of feel that we're finally getting there, you know, because like this actually idea, like it really resonates with me that it's easier to start tackling harder problems, like for you, right? Because I remember, like during my PhD, like there are certain topics I tried to tackle. Okay, so some stuff my PhD advisors were able to explain. Other things I just like got stuck, right? So okay, you know, like I'm gonna go do something else. Now you're like feeling more powerful. It does feel that there's like this bicycle that makes you go kind of faster, and there's like some exhilaration associated with it, right? It starts to feel fun. So I think that's almost like the best thing we're getting out of the AI now is that we're, you know, able to learn more, to understand things better.
Yeah, I don't want to like derail because this comes back to the original topic. It is an example of why, you know, it's amazing. Like you would not have closed source models enabling a product like this in a hackable way, in a, you know, open source like enablement, if it's all hiding behind a gateway API. Yeah, like I think it speaks to, and this is one of, you know, kind of hundreds, thousands of use case scenario people are doing. I bet you're seeing a lot more as well. Yeah.
Guys, like we're in San Francisco at the moment, right? Like the place where maybe the personal computing revolution like kind of started. And I think part of it was that people could hack things, right? They could buy, you know, parts and start building like personal computers out of it. And to me, it feels like very weird that we are now amidst like this paradigm shift. It's like a new paradigm in computing. We're going to change how we interact with machines. To me, it feels like extremely weird to have this stuff closed. Like it feels like kind of wrong, I have to say.
Yeah.
Okay, I can try to motivate where the feelings of wrongness is coming from, but I completely agree. Yeah.
Someone in the chat asked, I'm trying to find it here. Yes. Do you see a way forward to keep the compressed latent space that you're using right now, but improve the motion of fast objects in the model? Is this like is that like a parallel problem, or is that something you think that's solvable?
Yeah. Okay, guys. So let's do the kind of like short term and longer term. Like, so short term, with our next release, we're going to release something that's called diffusion decoder. So instead of having like a convolutional decoder, right, from latent space to pixel space that suffers from LPIPS artifacts that are introduced due to LPIPS laws during training, it looks like these diamond-like patterns. They're going to be like a transformer, like with a bunch of layers that dedicated to this task. It's not going to suffer from these artifacts, so it's already going to improve things. I think like a deeper problem here that I think finally kind of people start to think about and address is that in most of the open and closed system that I'm familiar with at the moment, we are having a constant token rate, right? Like a token represents a patch of the constant size. Okay, it could be a smaller patch, a bigger patch, but it's still constant. And just like think about, for example, as an analogy to what's going on in video compression, right? So we started with constant bit rate. And then as the CPUs improved with the algorithms, we switched to a variable bit rate, right? Where they allocate more bits to a more kind of complicated scenarios. And we can definitely compress the sky more than, I don't know, my hand moving with a lot of motion. We are going to have something like that with the latent space as well. So we're soon going to publish like a paper that shows how it's already like possible with images, meaning like during a generation process on the fly, the model will decide where like to allocate more tokens. Okay, and next frontier is going to be video. So I kind of hope that we're going to just like get to like these adaptive latent spaces where constant compression isn't going to be a thing, and then you're basically going to have like a parameters of like quality, right? And then people who need like 4K are going to do one thing, and people who need like a super high latency for real-time avatars or for streaming is going to have a different set of parameters.
I think this is this is huge if you manage to do it properly. So because for those who don't know, all the VAEs right now are not all of them are constant compression. Basically, for the same image, like the same image size, you're always going to get the same like latent size. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. Well, it's just you just multiply by a constant and you get the compressed size. So, but if we can do like image compression, video compression, like the ones that being used right now for the stream, for example, it allocates more bits when the action is more complex. So that's why these video VAEs, they always break when there's too much motion, because that's when you would want to allocate more bits to more represent that motion. Whereas a still image that doesn't need any bits. So.
But like I would say, guys, that there are like two problems there. Like when we're looking at a problematic motion, imagine that there are like two levels of problem, right? There is like a level of reconstruction that the latent space can't handle, and then there are like problems in the diffusion itself. Okay, that's still doesn't reach like the ceiling of the kind of latent space. And I think with the diffusion itself, there's another kind of cool concept that we're kind of finally will be able to push is like of virtual tokens, where imagine that it's almost like registers that you kind of allocate to model to work with, but they're not part of the loss. So the model can use it as kind of part of the interim computations. So that should kind of help to bridge the gap between kind of the expressibility of the DIT as compared to the sitting on the latent space. But for sure, the latent space itself, I think the variable token rate is the way to go. I think we're going to look back at our initial latent space design and kind of laugh pretty soon. So,
It also makes a lot of sense because I think from a visual perspective, there are just areas where human mind pays way more attention towards too, and like even when it comes to emotion itself.
Like I kind of feel that like variable token rate, it's almost a counter argument to some of the Yann LeCun's argument, right? He's like typically saying that, and again, I hope I phrase the argument correctly, right? But he is pushing for architectures that, for example, you can derive an action from, but are not generative, right? And his argument is saying, listen, like as a human mind, for example, when I try to predict how, for example, these, I don't know, leaves are gonna move in the wind, I can have some kind of low fidelity sense of the physics without tracking every leaf, right? And I think like the counter argument to that is that I kind of feel that we do actually in many scenarios are running low fidelity simulation in our head. I kind of imagine, okay, let's say I'm playing a game of billiards and I try to figure out what's going to happen when I push a ball and, it hits a wall and then it pushes another ball. So it feels like a low fidelity simulation where abstract almost everything away besides the thing I'm focused on, right? So I do feel that what you're saying kind of makes sense. Our visual system or like fovea, when we hallucinate all kind of scenarios, is also kind of adaptive. So it gives you a little bit of inspiration, right? And obviously I realize that, machines can work in a different way, but I think it feels like there's like something adaptive in our visual system. So it kind of makes sense to try these things.
Yeah, a lot of lossy compression is based on how much information can we remove before people actually figure out that there's something wrong. So that's like you see that with audio, for example, like the basic MP3 thing is just, oh, people can't hear above 20,000 hertz. Let's just cut off all the frequencies above that because people are not going to hear that anyway. So why do we keep them? Yeah.
Like, interestingly, guys, like, right, like with visual compression, we're typically using some kind of wavelet schemes, and we're just like throwing typically kind of high frequencies when we want to compress more. It's not necessarily like terribly perceptual in the visual case. I think the cool thing with doing variable token rate is that the model, according to the task, will decide what's important or not, right? It's not going to be like this adaptive scheme where we're going to like foveated rendering, right? Where we're saying, yeah, I'm just going to allocate more tokens on the set or whatever. No, it's actually what I really like about it, that it feels there are like no bitter lessons here. It's actually not a human decision during a training process. You are figuring out how to kind of allocate more tokens on the fly. So yeah, like that's to me sounds like super cool.
This sounds like a perfect segue into how you guys are moving now from video into world models, and how does this relate to a model's understanding of the physical world, and like for our audience, how does that extrapolate into the real world?
Actually, maybe before
please.
audience, like a little bit of context in terms of like what models is.
For sure. So guys, I think there's like a paper like roughly a quarter, maybe a little bit more ago from NVIDIA that's called like Dream Zero. And it really popularized like this idea that you can take a world simulation that's created by video models, right? Because like in some sense, like think about like a image to video, right? Like we're having some kind of an action or description of the world encoded, right? Like description of the scene. Then we have an initial boundary condition of the frame, and then we're like simulate what happens next. So what Dream Zero was able to show that you can take a model that was pre-trained for this task and pretty straightforwardly, I would say, adapted to speed out the action as well, right? So imagine that you're now having like this, say like robotic hands, where your prompt now is pick up something, right? Like pick up the bottle. And okay, so that's the prompt, and you're taking an input from robot's camera, and the robot starts to hallucinate, right? Like the model starts to hallucinate the motion of the hand. And then when you, for example, when you're like kind of doing the rendering, there are like more efficient way to do it. But imagine that you're doing the rendering and they're doing inverse kinematics to figure out how the robotic hand should move accordingly, right? So what's I think like fascinated with this idea is like, first of all, how straightforward it is. Right, you're just kind of imagining something and kind of moving yourself accordingly. And another thing that it actually works, right? So the surprising thing here that there are like certain things that were like extremely hard for previous paradigms in robotics, right? Especially VLAs, like a vision language action paradigm, where you're taking a VLLM, for example, that describe a scene, like, and bolting in a transformer that kind of creates an action out of it. So in this paradigm, you had typically to create like both a lot of data, and it was kind of fragile to changes in the setup. And what we're seeing like with world model is that they actually very tolerant to difference in setup. And sometimes, like you're seeing like this crazy thing where you're teaching a robot like to pick up something, and then, it comes with a grip, or pick up something, it falls, and the robot just like tries again, right? Because it's still conditioned on the same task. Okay, so now the image changes, like it's still same task in the system. So I think if I need to describe like world models, is again, it's like this idea that if you can hallucinate reality, if you can generate a video, it's not that hard to add an action part on top of it. And obviously there are like a ton of, the clever ways how you're encoding the action inside the tokens and reading it back without like rendering the whole video. A ton of activity in the space, but the core idea is extremely appealing.
Yeah, I love the concept. You can use a video model to train physical things. It's quite a leap.
But
considering.
I think it's what's surprising to me is that people tackled robotics for decades now, right? And
just fumbling around in the dark trying to
I kind of feel
without
like people invested entire careers in order to make like robots to do tasks in a more robust manner. And I really like this phrasing of Jim Fan, right? Like from NVIDIA, where he gave this lecture and spoke about all the shortcomings of VLA. And then listen, guys, what made the breakthrough, like the other like pre-training paradigms, these are like cat videos from internet, right? That's what allowed us to pre-train kind of robotics at the pre-train like the video diffusion transformer at scale and derive the action from it. So it is kind of crazy to think about, because I think he is right? Like we are training these models with dancing videos from the internet and cats, and we're getting robots on the other side. That's kind of cool.
Are you concerned about synthetic training data being used in this way, like potentially training the robots incorrectly, or do you feel like the checks and balances are built into the training so that it's
well, I guess it depends on the training team, right? So just like a bit of the context, or like some papers in the past show that if you're introducing too much synthetic data, you have like this regressions and collapses over time. And I think most of the pre-training team these days are aware of it, so are trying to find the right kind of mix of the synthetic data. Some amount of synthetic data is actually helpful sometimes, right? It creates like these more robust systems. I don't think it's terribly complex to filter for synthetic data, right? Because generated stuff typically tends to have some kind of spectral signature that you can identify. So I kind of feel it's more of the engineering challenge than some like a big problem that we can't figure out.
I think it's fine to train on synthetic data as long as it's curated a bit. Like it's more if you train like just on the random outputs of a model that you might end up with problems.
I guess from like purely this video model to world model kind of perspective, how much I'm kind of curious from you guys' end. I'd imagine actually it's similar to a lot of the people who are building this type of transition or moving into more of like or not moving into, but more like taking on the challenge in the robotics space. How much of it is like planned, or just like, oh, we see where like kind of, let's say Dream Zero type of paper just showed the glimpse in that future, and then kind of starting to move towards or enable towards that world? How much is that just pleasant surprise, like I'd imagine Flipbook or other places, other action hack around it?
I kind of feel that as the company grows, right, there's always like for some reason like the narrative becomes that our founders knew everything, like from the day zero they saw like this bright future and they took us there, and that's become the official narrative of the company, where I feel that the reality is never like that, like literally never like that, right? So at some point, I hope he doesn't mind he quoting him, I met the Zeev Farbman, like the CEO of Mellanox, and it was like this big acquisition by NVIDIA that I think was like amazing for both companies. And there was like a discussion around
the MV Link.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So there was like a discussion.
That was some next level. Like that was probably like the most like great outcome for both companies. Genius move.
So the conversation was about what makes startups successful. So kind of around that, right? Like how you're deciding about things, etc. So like really remember I really just like his answer. So listen, guys, for a startup to succeed, you only need two things. One is a whole lot of luck, and two are fucking miracles. Okay, like with these two things at hand, you're going to be successful. So, like, listen, that's my answer to it. We are experiencing a paradigm shift. No one knows what's going to happen next. If someone claims at the moment that they're seeing that like figured everything out, I call it bullshit. Okay, but that's me.
I was trying to set up the stage for you to just like, I've played the 5D chess. I've seen the future. I've simulated 1,000 or 10,000 outcomes in my head, and then saw that.
Come on.
Yeah,
Would you believe me though?
No, we're trying to collect some soundbite for YouTube for posting on. It's okay. We'll edit this part with LTX and then just deep fake it.
What has been the most insane modality you've seen the community sort of shovel into LTX 2.3?
Oh wow. Because I have to say, I like recently saw a lore that came, I think, from one of the FAL guys that did like this rudimentary 3D shading to
3D Real by Lovis Odin.
yeah, exactly. So isn't I just like really like classical computer graphics, and they really passionate about rendering. And like with our CTO, we once did some 3D rendering works about like pre-computed radiance transfer. So for me, it was always like fascinating how you're like simulating illumination quickly and with high reliability, etc. So I just like really like, because that to me seems like such a magical moment, right? Where you can feed the low fidelity, like stream that you can render like pretty quickly and get on the other side like some kind of fancy rendering. I think that was like super cool. I really like some of the VFX things that people are using. So as like there's like this that one actually maybe came from Lightrix, I'm not sure, about like this fluid simulation LoRa. So fluid simulation
Yeah.
in general, like computational fluid dynamics, was typically an extremely expensive thing. The simulations are costly, and here you just like see how many things the model picks up, right? Like, so there's like a joker there that's kind of it's like there's like water and rain, and you just see how his clothes react correctly to the water. And so I really like it. I also feel that a lot of people with the classical 3D pipelines will appreciate the fact that what you're doing with the generative model is additive, right? Because, okay, you're getting this output, and then you can do like kind of classical alpha blending to restore some of your original pixels that you can apply this edit locally, because they definitely seeing all these like latent space artifacts and compression, etc., and they try to figure out how to integrate these things with their pipelines. So if you're doing like this VFX effect that can be combined locally, right? I think for them it's huge. So that was another one that I liked. And completely new modalities, I think these are like the hacks that robotics guys are doing. These are like tokens that represent all kind of weird stuff, like the pressure of the grippers, the positions of the joints. And I was like really surprised that it's so easy to adapt the transformer to things that weren't in pre-training at all. But here we are.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think the most exciting one for me is the audio to video modality, where you sort of start with an image and then you feed it audio, and it hallucinates that image as a reference image and brings it to life. This type of creation is something that really you can only do with LTX 2.3.
Yeah.
Like ByteDance, like CDance kind of does it, but not like LTX 2.3 does. And
Yeah,
I think
I
to me,
tend
that's just
agree.
super interesting when the community is like, they just like hammer this. Like, I think Kajai just basically hammered that in with his nodes, and then we ended up supporting it natively. But yeah, that's just my main point, is like it's so cool when the community just shoehorns something in like that.
Yeah.
So when are you gonna improve the audio VAE? That's I know it's a difficult problem.
No, like the same paradigm of diffusion decoder you can apply to the audio as well. It's a stretch goal for the upcoming release, right? Like we already gave you like the diffusion decoder, right? Like on all these things, but for audio diffusion decoder, I'm not sure we're gonna make it on time, but that's supposed to remove a lot of the dynamic range issues that you're hearing now, right? Like when you're hearing, like this kind of hum, or like this weird stuff, typically it's come from kind of a limited dynamic range that the pipeline.
This is a problem. Every audio VAE has a problem.
But I didn't see the diffusion decoder in audio. Again, like I have no idea what the close guys are doing, but I actually like around that I'm like really hopeful. It's a stretch goal because by nature people focus more on video, but I think we're gonna get there.
I know people focus on video, but I think there's not enough of these audio models. And LTX is an audio video model. I think if the audio quality was better, I you might see more people who try to use it like as a music model, for example.
Yeah, so come with their data to fine tune it on a specific music style. I tend to agree. I kind of thought there were going to be more of that, right? Like we saw some cool stuff like this like audio reactive LoRa's, right? That I kind of really like. But I tend to agree. But listen, that's on us. We are going to try to push audio diffusion decoder. We're going to try to figure out. So
I think going
Yeah.
back to the previous thing, since it came up, just for the general audience, to better understand the paradigm we have right now. If you look at, I would say LTX and CDance is this kind of almost representing two competing and opposite, not competing, but actually like potentially coexisting type of view of how generative model moves forward. I think actually maybe I'll ask this. I remember there's this community, like open community, is very hyped about this one message you sent. Like guys will get there. I think it gave a lot of people hope, and it has shown the progress in here of getting there. From that perspective, what gave you the confidence? I can technically argue that, hey, for organization with such huge amount of resources, and especially data labelers, and the also the data assets that they own from their platform, it does seem like a very very hard to climb level of kind of mountain to get there. But then at the same time, you're seeing open models on the LLM space getting there as well.
So you answered yourself.
No, I would love to hear from you. I think the community want to hear from your perspective.
There's I think what you mentioned in the end around the Chinese frontier labs or like DeepSeek and Moonshot, etc. That's really part of the answer. I think what happened with OpenAI and Anthropic, that they pictured they created a certain perception that in order to create these models you need a crazy amount of capital and this crazy amount of geniuses, and no one else can do it. And then I think in this really amazing DeepSeek moment, right? Chinese lab show, they just literally called them on their bullshit. And as times progress, and now we're really seeing it, the Chinese models are closing the gap. And okay, these guys can try to do all kind of regulatory stuff, etc. In the end of the day, it's not going to work, right? Chinese will catch up, and the cool thing about these labs that they don't have what I call a capex trap. Imagine that Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, these guys spend so much on the models and spend so much on the data centers and all the stuff around it, that if, I don't know, Anthropic and OpenAI do not IPO with $1 trillion to $2 trillion valuation, it's going to be a very bad outcome to a whole lot of people. So they kind of cornered with the business model of being a toll road. Every time you touch their model, they need to tax you, okay? Chinese guys are coming from a completely different setup. And okay, they're not valued at $1 trillion, but $50 to $100 billion, it's a pretty nice valuation for all intents and purposes. But they're not cornered to this crazy story that, you need to work with API with everything you're doing, that doesn't translate itself to a lot of use case. So coming back to us, we were inspired by what Chinese labs are doing. We decided to make our bets, right? If you're working in a very compressive latent space, your training costs are lower. And imagine also, you mentioned, the capturing data, when you're training behind a little bit, you are leveraging better and better captioners, right? So imagine that if you captioned your data a year or two ago, you could spend a ton of money and get to a fraction of the kind of, and again, these days with a fraction of the cost, you're getting kind of way higher. So imagine the strategy here is that we obviously have I don't know, 1% of the computer of these guys. Okay, so we can be kind of a little bit smarter with what we're doing. And listen, it is very frustrating to be in a situation where we already have architecture of all the sizes, right? We have a mixture of experts of 200 billion parameters, and we have like extremely cool, like small architectures, and we know we can train all these things and like latent space ideas. And we are like extremely kind of almost limited by amount of compute what we have. But we do hope that we're seeing like a lot of traction with licensing the model to big organization, right? So we have the validation that the business model works. We plan to kind of fundraise at some point, and we hope to show everyone that you can have sedans, you have like all these robotics models that are open weights and work with a completely different business model. I think it's doable. I know it's not easy, but listen, it is a fun game to play. I'm sure you can appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. I do think like in general, it's just representing like like the LM space as well. Just really showed this possibility of getting there, and I personally fundamentally do believe that's going to be a world, and I do think like for the closed labs, there's a lot of incentive for them to pitch this story. Recently, I saw someone on like I think from OpenAI mentioned something along the line of like open source models are like fundamentally decelerationist or something like that. It just makes me so mad. It's just like historically there has never been a case scenario where a kind of lockdown low kind of transfer of knowledge environment in any institution or organization that makes like fundamentally like a huge breakthrough. Like if you look at even like what they are building on top of like in terms of breakthrough, it came from the open community. Like it came from transform paper, it came from all of the kind of neural network so like do you think that okay, you need to aggregate all of the resources under these few closed source institution to make breakthrough? Like that view is decelerationist. Which is also like kind of coming back to the topic on the LTX side. I think what are some of the really interesting like community oriented research or like kind of technique or discovery that you guys were inspired or kind of took from the rest of the open ecosystem and then applied to your own foundation?
Yeah, I think the like having less resources actually makes you more creative, because like if you're in a big lab and you have unlimited resources and then your instructions are, oh, make me the best video model, well, you're gonna make okay, how big can we do this model? Can we make a 500 billion parameter model? And let's do it. We have the resources. But in the case where you're actually resource limited, then you might be, okay, we want to make the best model, but how do we do this? We only have we can only make it like 20 billion parameters. Like, let's figure something out.
Yeah. Just like I completely get the constraint argument, but you don't want to be constrained too much, right? Because if you give you like $10 for a computer, it's going to be very hard under these constraints to kind of build something. And Yoland, to your question about what we learned, listen, like we learned like a crazy amount from the first release of 2 billion parameters model. I think like the first paper that I can really vividly remember was like this paper was called like spatial temporal guidance, like STG, right? That it showed, like if you think about like CFG context, right? We're kind of pushing the model. We're doing like extrapolation between conditioned and unconditioned generation, right? So CFG really kind of tends to improve things across all diffusion models, and there are like other ideas, right? You can use a version of the model that was like less trained, for example. So an STG paper that showed this neat trick where you can skip one of the transformer layers. So you're kind of reducing the quality of generation and kind of extrapolate for that. So you're like doing 2 generations, one with all the blocks and the other one where like, for example, skipping the blocks. And then you're kind of extrapolating, from this direction kind of. And that like really, I remember around like 2B model, that was like a huge jump in quality that like really came from the community. I was like, whoa, it was like so cool to see. It didn't come from LTX, it didn't come from Lightrix. And like now, for example, we are working on a regressive version of our model, and we have like a bunch of variants, and they're like, different flavors of how we can do autoregression. That also came from like a bunch of papers that people did on top of LTX. So imagine, I kind of feel that, okay, once you're open, there are like a whole lot of problems that comes with it, but you like really open up and decentralize R&D and like frankly kind of reduce your costs, because around like autoregression on top of LTX, people tried the best ideas, and we are evaluating these ideas, and then we're betting on the best ones. And by the way, the same story with distillation. It's also another kind of costly process. So you're seeing, okay, what people are doing, then you're uh, starting your distillation efforts from what already researchers show. They typically, don't train their stuff for a long time. So more of the kind of proof of concept prototype, but it's extremely, extremely valuable.
That's super cool. I think recently there was we had a live stream with Ideogram CEO on the pod, and there's a very cool moment when I think Ostras, like the famous AI toolkit creator and LoRa trainer person, was kind of in the audience, and then Ideogram CEO Mohammed, he was asking him, it's like, hey, Ostras, would be great if you could share, how you trained the fast ideogram LoRa, which was really cool to see a very established researcher and kind of organizational leader to ask a community member and say like, hey, we'd love to get your secret sauce over here as well. Really just truly shows, and a lot of these people, Kijai, Ostras, all of those folks do not come from a typical background
for sure. Like, listen, I was really surprised that you were able to hire Kijai, because he's exactly the kind of like open research without constraint kind of guy. But I think like what's exciting for me that we're also able to hire some of these people from the community.
Right, yeah.
And they're like really doing an amazing job. So again, I know it's like a very different setup from closed labs, but I'm like really okay to playing on our part of the court.
Yeah, 100%.
That's amazing. Well, I think this is a perfect place to wrap up. And I mean, we've been really great to talk to you about all this stuff, Zeev, and please come back. We really enjoyed this. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Is there anything you'd like to tell the people that's coming up, or anything? Anything you'd like to plug about LTX? Please take the time.
But it's like I think there are like enough rumors by now. We're obviously going to release kind of another dense transformer soon. In terms of the general roadmap, I hope like our like marketing people won't kill me. But the idea is to have transformers of all sizes out there, like from the biggest ones, like 200 billion parameters mixture of experts, to like the smallest ones out there. At some point, like switch, like initially all these models are going to be in the same latent space. So you're going to be able kind of to play in the same latent space with different models. That's already valuable for a ton of things. At some point, switching the latent space, and then kind of giving again the transformers all the sizes there. It's actually a very important point. We're going to release our biggest models to the community as well. We're really not kind of keep the big stuff, release the small stuff kind of guys. So we're going to
amazing.
Yeah, and we're gonna make sure they actually work well on your hardware. So.
With 200 billion parameters is going to be challenging, but we trust you guys.
Hey, if you raise a 200 billion parameter model, that just means we'll have to convince people to buy fast SSDs, because they'll be streaming it from the SSD.
No, I agree. No, but I completely agree. I know it sounds crazy. We'll make it work. Like with streaming, it's possible. Also, like, okay, it's probably going to be like token routing. You're not going to have a ton of experts per token. It's like one of the considerations that when we're like debating MOE architectures, sometimes we're saying, okay, this architecture in terms of loss is better, but it's going to be harder to, kind of stream it. So like we're thinking about this stuff, guys, you're going to get, your seedance locally. We're getting there.
Amazing.
Ooh, you heard it here first. And also, shout out to What Dreams Cost. He's in the chat, and he made LTX Director, which is a very popular, comfy node for making storyboard-based LTX videos. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Code Rabbit, for letting us use your studio for today. That was amazing. So yeah, shout out LTX, shout out Comfy, shout out Code Rabbit, shout out What Dreams Cost, shout out the whole community. Ostrus, everybody. Thank you, friends. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Purse.
Thank you. Yeah.